Disaster Recovery and Business Continuity Solutions, a presentation powered by EverSafe. Why do we want to talk about disaster recovery? Just over the last couple of years alone, there have been numerous events that have really woken people up to the problems of system backup and disaster recovery and business continuity. For example, you have situations like flood, wind, or power failure, or even things like a virus or ransomware in which your data is held captive. A dollar sprinkler head in your server room can bust and take down all of your servers, or, what's most commonly the issue, human error, somebody accidentally deleting a key part of your hard drives, or a user error within an application causing significant data damage or loss. Some examples: just back in 2012, the Sony PlayStation network was hacked and the entire network was down for almost an entire month, which crippled Sony's reputation and took them years to recover. The amount of losses sustained during that period have still yet to be fully calculated. In 2012, Hurricane Sandy hit the Northeast, causing billions of dollars in damage. But what most people don't see on the news are the number of companies who lost all of their data or access just to their systems for weeks on end. In 2013, the first occurrence of crypto locker showed up. This is a problem that has continued to fester itself because it's so profitable for hackers to create software that invades your network, encrypts all of your data, and then holds you at financial ransom. In many cases, even after paying the ransom, your data is never unlocked. Just recently, an example of ransomware in 2016 was in a major hospital which had to pay over $17,000 in fees to get their data unlocked, and they were lucky enough to be able to get their information released. So, why do we want to talk about disaster recovery planning?
Our disaster recovery plan goes something like this. Someday we hope to have a budget.
That's a humorous take on things, but it's really not that far-fetched from what we see many companies have in terms of a disaster recovery plan. First of all, most companies think you could just back up your files along with your business applications and you're ready to go. However, many business applications today are using real-time databases where the files that they are using are always busy. Simple file backups like Carbonite or Mozy will not be able to properly back those applications up. When you go to restore them, you'll find out that those files have been skipped or are compromised because the files weren't open and in a state in which they could be backed up at the time. Backup for files is fine for a very small business running on something like a single-user version of QuickBooks and some Microsoft Office files. But if you run ERP software, CRM software, or other line-of-business applications, file backup is not going to cut it. And systems today are typically running 24/7 because of all the mobile device access. So trying to back up anything with a system that can handle files that are in use is likely to cause real problems when you try to restore. And even if you do have a file backup of all of your files, restoring can be a nightmare. First of all, you typically have to wait for your hardware that was damaged to be repaired or replaced. You then have to, from scratch, install things like Windows Server software, wait hours for service packs to download and install. Then you have to recreate all your printers and your network setups. Depending on what was damaged, you may have to set up all of your users, your security, your domains, your ancillary software like antivirus, SQL Server. Then you can begin the process of restoring your data files. And then you have to install your ERP application, for example, Sage 100 or Microsoft Dynamics and what have you. Then you restore your ERP database, and then you may still have issues where customizations weren't restored, licensing isn't restored. This process can take typically days to as much as a week or more in total. Just using an example for a file backup situation, it could take as little as 2 days to as much as 2 weeks to get replacement hardware. Most hardware manufacturers like Dell or HP don't stock the servers that you order. Most everything is made to order and deliveries are between 1 and 3 weeks. Then the time to go through the restore process can take 2 days or longer. Then re-entering any data that was lost, because most file backups are once a day, can take another day. Assuming your company has 30 employees, you can see your man hours of downtime can be anywhere from 1,200 to 3,100 hours. And using an average of that, this downtime incident could cost you $100,000. Does that cheap backup solution seem so inexpensive now? Even if you have more sophisticated backup software that does virtual machine snapshots or images, restoring from that can also be problematic. First, again, you have to repair or replace your virtual machine host hardware unless you keep duplicate sets of hardware on the shelf depreciating. Then you'll have to typically reinstall your host software system, and that assumes that your in-house IT people are the ones with the skills available to do that and configure it. All of those service packs. Then you would have to reconfigure the VM software to work with your backup images so that everything reconnects, including internetworking between those. Then you have to restore your large VM files from backups, which can be time-consuming. And then when that is all done, you have to hope that the virtual machine images are not corrupt and they were made very recently. Most companies make those snapshots once, maybe twice a day. But even with a daily backup, you could lose 30 people times 8 hours a day. And doing those calculations, you can see you can still be down quite some time. The damage isn't quite as bad, but can easily be $87,000 in this example. Using cloud backup for backing up your files also has additional risks. First of all, typically to restore your files, it has to be done through the internet unless you're paying a premium fee for a DVD shipment. Even with DVD shipments, services like Carbonite typically are using overseas support centers, which are very slow to be responsive to phone calls, to ship your data, and for you to receive it. Again, it can be days before you have your data in your hands. They have no expertise to help you with your restoration process other than to give you a disk with your raw files. Many of these services only offer business hours live support, such as 9 to 5, and providers like Carbonite heavily throttle the speeds so large backups can be extremely slow in order to keep their costs down. Some of these services tout their real-time backup of files, meaning as soon as your file changes, the system backs it up. However, with viruses like CryptoLocker, that is actually the worst case scenario, because as soon as CryptoLocker encrypts your files, they're automatically flagged to be backed up, and now you've backed up encrypted files and have a very difficult way to get older versions back en masse. Moving all of your servers to the cloud and avoiding on-premise hardware, some people think is a panacea to backup and disaster recovery. However, first of all, most cloud solutions are what we call SaaS, software as a service, and they're multi-tenant. This means your data is commingled with other people's data and can only be restored in a disaster, not in a logical situation where you just want your information restored. A disgruntled employee, for example, could go into Salesforce or Office 365 and delete numerous files for which these vendors do not have an easy way for you to restore just that kind of information. Many cloud services back up your files, and some of them even your images, but they don't do so as frequently as a true disaster recovery requires. Some might only do an image backup once a day or even once a week, which requires you then to do a lot of incremental restoration. It can take many hours for that provider to get an IT expert available for you to retrieve those images and get them up and running again with the complexities of their IP infrastructure. And remember, read that service level agreement fine print. It sounds very good about having 99.9999% uptime, but the reality is if they don't have that uptime, the only thing they guarantee you is a refund of your hosting fees for the number of hours your system is down. But when your system is down, what you're paying per hour for those hosting fees is a fraction, a small fraction, of what it's actually costing your business not to have access to your systems. So let's take a look at this. This is a picture of Hurricane Sandy as it was hitting the Northeast. A study done by the National Archives and Record Administration showed that 90% of companies that lost their IT area for more than 10 days had filed for bankruptcy within 1 year of the disaster. Small businesses, on average, lose anywhere from a minimum of $15,000 to $50,000 a day for downtime. And what are your costs of downtime? productivity of people not being able to work, lost days of service, failures to meet contract deadlines, lost billings, missed shipments, and service failures, which means customers may switch to another vendor looking for an alternate supplier during the emergency, like that supplier, and they may never come back. Don't you wish you were here during Hurricane Sandy instead of being hit? Well, unfortunately, at that same time, your IT director just happened to be on vacation when disaster struck. Most backup systems, even excellent backup systems, rely on a key IT person to be available to do the restoration process. You want a solution that has a complete team of people available to help you get back up and running quickly, even if your key IT person is unavailable or perhaps affected by the very same disaster that's affecting your site and can't be gotten because cell phone networks are down, remote access and internet is down, and there's no ability to drive to the facility. Symantec did a survey and found that about half of the small businesses have no backup and disaster recovery plan. And of those who have a plan, only half implemented it after they had a major outage or loss. And only just about a quarter of them actually test their plan. And a tested plan really is as good as no plan at all. So how do you prepare? The first thing you want to do is create a business impact analysis in which you name and describe all of your key equipment and how it's prioritized in terms of where it is, who handles it, what's your recovery strategy, and so forth. A lot of that is measured in terms of RPO and RTO. RPO stands for Recovery Point Objective. And that is how much lost data can you afford? Is it okay that your data backup is 1 hour old, 4 hours old, 1 day old, 1 week old? Only you can determine how much pain it is to lose that data and how much work is required to rekey or recover it. On the other side of the arrow, you have your RTO, or Recovery Time Objective. That is how long from the point of declaring a disaster or a problem can you have that system back up and running again. Typically, the shorter the recovery point objective, meaning the frequency of your backups, and your recovery time objective, i.e. how quickly you can be back up, shorter those times are, the more expensive the solution. And then whatever solution you have, you need to test it, because an untested disaster recovery plan is like not having one. With most traditional backup systems, a full test requires complete duplicate server hardware so you can do complete restorations to the same equipment that you have. That's a very expensive proposition. The system should be tested no less than once a year or whenever there is a significant IT change to your infrastructure. Your first full test will probably show some significant gaps as you try and put all of your backup systems together, but that's to be expected. Now, those are all of the classic problems, but when you have a solution like EverSafe, you have true business continuity, and many of these problems go away. Let's look at a simple example. Somebody accidentally just deleted some files. With EverSafe, you can quickly restore those backup files that are only minutes old from regular servers through our EverSafe appliance that's on your premises. Typical time from needing your files to having your files is measured in minutes. Let's say your company is hit by a virus or one or more of your servers suffer a major hardware failure. At that point in time, you can instantly fail over to the on-premise EverSafe appliance, and your exact servers are now up and running inside of our appliance, even if your original servers are damaged or destroyed. Typically, those servers have been backed up within the last hour, so statistically speaking, your data is on average only 30 minutes old. And failback to replacement server can be done very quickly and done after hours where there's no downtime for your employees. Typically, from the time of determining you have an outage to the time you're up on our failed over server is less than 15 minutes. Just a real-world example from one of the customers who has an accounting package called Mass 90, where they did a backup and all of their data disappeared for over 2 months of data. Or another instant message within the organization here, where a client lost all of their data and only because their IT provider had a backup copy on premise were they able to update anything, and that was over 2.5 months old. Imagine losing 2.5 months of your data. Now, suppose you have a true disaster, a fire, a flood, or even a sprinkler head busts in your server room, taking out all of your servers in the rack. Your employees with EverSafe can go home and work in the cloud, where the EverSafe solution data center can now spin up all of your servers, and you can be operating remotely until you get your facilities back together. Once your facilities are restored, whether they're in temporary places or they're repaired, you can then fail back from the cloud to your premise, typically over a weekend. Again, the whole process having no significant downtime on your employees. From the time you declare a disaster to the time your entire IT system is running in the cloud could typically be done in less than 1 hour. Just to give you some ideas of pricing, a file-based only solution with cloud file backup, sync, and share is typically for a 1.5 terabyte scenario of servers, $550 a month with a solution like Mozy Pro. If you want an image-based local appliance like Barracuda, that's $430 a month. However, image appliances make for easy backups and easy restorations. They do not make for failover and cloud failover. If you want image-based backup with local appliances and local and cloud backup along with cloud, file, sync, and share, similar to Dropbox, EverSafe can provide that for the same 1.5 terabytes for a $3,000 one-time hardware charge and $699 a month subscription fee. That fee covers all of your online backup, all of your 24 by 7 by 365 US-based support, and all of the capabilities that we've described. Just one outage of 2 hours more than pays for the solution for many years. EverSafe. Please look at the next video in order to see an actual live demonstration of the solution.